Alright guys, so now we're going to start to create our virtual environment. Now, we have to actually install the venv or the venv package using our apt package manager. Okay, so we want to run this command. Let's do sudo apt install python 3-venv. Okay, and then, like I said, we're going to create a directory called pyapps in the home folder. So let's clear this out and just cd, make sure we're in the home. If you see this little squiggly line, that represents the home folder. And right now there's nothing in it, or nothing that's not hidden. So let's go ahead and make directory pyapps, and then cd into pyapps. Okay. And from here, we want to create our virtual environment. So we're going to say Python 3, and this works just like we did in the local environment. If you're using Windows and you were using the, we're going to create it the same way, but to activate it, you're going to use this right here, bin activate, not your scripts activate.bat. So Python 3-m. And we want to say venv, and then the directory we want to call it is going to be venv as well. Okay, so now if I do an ls, you see we have our venv. If we look inside of that, we have our bin file, and that has our activate script. Okay, so let's activate our environment by doing source. We're going to do venv/bin/activate, and now we're inside of our virtual environment. Okay, and you can tell because we have this venv right here. So now we want to get ready to actually clone our Git repository, which has our application. Now we need the dependencies for our application. Now I'm going to go back into my local project. Okay, so right now I'm in my local project. Very important to know that. I'm not on the server in this tab. So I'm still in my virtual environment. Now if I do a pip freeze, this shows me all of my dependencies for this project. Now, a lot of this stuff is like linting. It's stuff for VS Code, auto pep 8. This isn't stuff that we actually need on the server. So you have a couple options. You could install each thing on your server separately, like pip install, like of course Django. Pip install pillow, which is needed for images. These two are needed for Postgres, and then I believe the only other thing we need is I think this right here, this pytz. We don't need Pylint, Django. We don't need any of that. But I just want to show you a command that we can use to get all of these dependencies into a text file, and then we can actually push that to our server and just install from that. So to do that, we want to do pip install -r. I'm sorry, that's not what we want. We want to do that on the server. We want to do pip freeze, which basically takes all of our dependencies, and then we want to put it into a file called requirements.txt. All right, so now if I do an ls, you'll see we have that file. If I take a look at it, I'll say cat requirements.txt, and it has all of our dependencies. So I actually want to edit this. I want to delete the stuff that we don't want on our server. Okay, so I mean, we could do a nano here. Let's actually just go into VS Code. So let's go into btre project, and now we have the requirements.txt. Okay, so I just want to figure out what we need and we don't need. So we don't need asteroid, we don't need that or that. Of course we need Django. We don't need this or that. We need pillow. We want these two. These two have to do with Postgres. Don't need this or these, any of this Pylint stuff. We do want that. We don't need 6 or wrapped. So basically we just need these as requirements. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Now we want to push this to our Git repository. So what I'll do is go down here and I'll say git add all, and then let's say git commit, and I'll say added requirements file. Okay, and then we want to push, so I'm going to say git push. Alright, so now if we go back to our Git repository and I reload, there's our requirements.txt. Okay, so now what we need to do is on the server, we need to actually clone this whole application, this whole repository. So let's go back to our terminal. I'm going to just close VS Code up or minimize it. Go back to our terminal, and I'm going to go back to the tab where we're actually running our server as Django admin inside of our virtual environment. So from here, we want to do a clone. And actually, let's go back to our document here. And the way that we do that is like this. Okay, so git clone. Now I'm using HTTPS here because I don't feel like setting up SSH keys on my server for GitHub. So it's up to you. If you want to go through that, you can, but I'm just going to use HTTPS. That way I can just log in. So let's see, we're going to go ahead and paste this in. And you just want to change, if you called it BTRE project like I did, you just want to keep it like that, but you want to put your username in here. So we'll clone that. So it's going to ask for the username. Okay, password. All right. So now let's do an ls in PyApps, and you can see we have our BTRE project. So we have our entire project on our server. If we ls BTRE underscore project, and we take a look, our entire application is here. So using Git to deploy to bring your files onto a server is just fantastic. It's extremely fast, and it's much better than using something like FTP or something like that. All right, now we need to actually install our requirements or dependencies. So if I do a pip freeze, remember we're on our server now, we're in the virtual environment, and I do a pip freeze, all we have is this package resources. We don't have Django, we don't have any of that stuff. And like I said, we could do pip install for Django, for all of our dependencies, but since we have that that requirements file, we can use that. So I just want to cd into our project now. So BTRE underscore project. And this is where, if I do an ls, you'll see we have our requirements.txt file. So I'm going to clear this up, and I'm going to run pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay, and for my JavaScript developers, this is like doing an npm install and having it look at your package.json file. Okay, it's virtually the same thing. So now if we do a pip freeze, we have all that stuff installed. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to create a local settings file on our server, because right now we have a settings.py that has all of our development stuff in it as far as the database name, all that stuff. And you don't want that to be public. You don't want your production database credentials to be public, especially if this here is going to be a public repository. Like they could easily go into BTRE and settings, and they can see your secret key, which is something that you definitely don't want to be exposed. They could see some other stuff, your database, which is the most important. And then we also need to change a couple things for production, like set debug to false, allowed hosts. We need to add our allowed hosts. So to do this, what we do is we have a special settings file on the server, and we just basically include it at the bottom of this file. So we say if if we're in deployment, then add this additional settings, these additional settings, which will overwrite databases and secret key and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to do in the next video.